there, and a very warm welcome to the program. You're watching Smart 24 TV. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for, of course, keeping tuned in the #1 business channel in East Africa. My name is Anthony Sebale, and you're watching Financial Markets, where we get to give you updates in what's currently happening in the domestic, regional, as well as the global financial markets. Remember to follow the show. The hashtag is Financial Markets, and on Twitter you can follow Smart24TV at Smart24TV, and you can follow me personally at Anthony Sebale. There you'll definitely get the latest content in the world of business and what's currently trending in the financial markets. Remember, the show is also brought to you proudly by Altex East Africa. Now, Altex, through their Zabu initiative, are bringing treasury bonds to your sitting room. Now you can transfer money off your mobile account and get them onto the exchange and be able to buy treasury bonds across East Africa. Today, of course, being within an economy that is, of course, surrounded with inflation and a couple of other uncertainties, we are looking at the treasury bonds to be one of the safest investments in the current economic times that are prevailing. And Altex East Africa is getting you ahead on that by saying you can now invest without stockbrokers, without bypassing all those other intermediaries, and get to directly buy from the exchange on the secondary market. Simply dial *292# between 15 minutes past 8 a.m. and 15 minutes past 3 p.m. East African Standard Time to buy the latest treasury bonds. You will actually see the interest rates of Altex on their website there at www.altex.com. We do have treasury bonds that are long-term, for example, 20 years, as well as those that are a little bit shorter term, from the 3 years, 5 years, 10 years as well. Altex East Africa doing something new. Now, of course, let's get right into the business of the day here. Today being the last day of the week and the last weekday of trading for the third week of 2023. We thank God for, of course, bringing us this far. But how much have, of course, the financial markets been able to bring on board here? Generally looking across Africa, just having a simple glimpse into the markets. When we look overall across the South African markets, we did have a big gain there on the Johannesburg, rather a loss actually, on the big loss on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, but Zimbabwe Stock Exchange actually gained on their all share index, as we're going to see further into the program as well. When you come to East Africa, Nairobi Stock Exchange for the first day this week actually registered a gain on their all share index, which is very good news for the East African, the biggest East African bourse. And when you go to West Africa, Nigeria Stock Exchange as well did have a slight gain over 10.91 on Thursday on their all share index, whereas Ghana Stock Exchange as well looked at a loss that they actually had to endure for the Thursday trading, over 1.79 points lost on their all share index. Globally, looking at the US stocks, the biggest indices, the Nasdaq Composite as well as the S&P 500, actually did lose some value, as we are going to see as we get into the season of earnings. Yes, this is a season for earnings, and various companies, of course, are putting their shareholders, the shareholders are putting the companies to the test and getting to see how they have actually been able to perform in the last financial year. We are at a time when the financial year is closing for most companies and generally for the national economies as well. So this is a very critical time for the markets, and the data here comes in very, very handy as well. The Federal Reserve Bank is speaking out there on the US debt, which has hit its limit. You want to hear more about that, you should stick around as well. But of course, let's first start with the Uganda Securities Exchange and have a look at what the trading looked like on Thursday, generally speaking. Now, on average, when we look at the all share index we lost some few points on the all share index, close to 12.81 points. And this is a 1.04% loss to 1,213 points on our all share index. For starters, the index tracks the aggregate performance of the listed stocks, whether cross listing or domestic listing, name it. All the listings are actually taken care of when it comes to the all share index. Now, this index lost 12 points. Generally speaking, it means our markets declined a little bit. But when you look at the participation, and this is very interesting, we had 6 companies, which is, I think, one of the biggest numbers we've had this year on a single day. 6 listings or 6 companies participated in the day's trading, with the day ending with 2 gainers and 6 losers, unfortunately. And the top gainer here was Jubilee Holdings Limited, with over a 2.40% gain that was registered on the company, that ended the day with a price of 5,922.59 shillings. The other hand, we had Nation Media Group in the second place at a 0.91% gain as well, with over 475.88 Ugandan shillings that was traded. This being cross listings, not much trading, not trading actually at all was done on these ones. But on the losing side, unfortunately, coming at the bottom is Stanbic Bank Uganda. Stanbic Bank Uganda lost a total value of 8.46% on the markets on Thursday and closed the day with a price of 21.0 Ugandan shillings. KCB Group as well lost 1.74% and closed the day with 1,126.70 Ugandan shillings closing price. And East African Breweries Limited as well lost a total value of over 1.20%, down to 5,040.50 Ugandan shillings. Centum Investments lost close to 0.96% to 252.03. Centum has continued to register declines in the year 2023. Remember, the company ended last year with over close to 50% value wiped away from every shareholder's portfolio. Well, they are still going into 2023. Seems to be a similar story for Centum. We also had the East Equity Bank Limited stock as well fall to 0.68%, and this was down to 1,369.83 Ugandan shillings. Kenya Airways lost over 0.04%, down to 113.56 Ugandan shillings per share as well. And on average, those were the gainers and losers we had on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Interestingly, on the participants list, we did have several new entrants here, with Cipla Quality Chemical Industries taking away a share of about 12,500 of the day's movement in terms of the volumes here on the exchange. And Bank of Baroda, who has been also silent for quite a while, scooping over 1,600 shares in the Thursday tradings. MTN Uganda was the biggest mover on the market, with over close to 459,960 shares that were traded on the MTN stock. Remember, MTN is still currently the most recent listing that is making about a year and a couple of days now on the Uganda Securities Exchange main board of investment. And this company came in as an electronic IPO, which was still one of a kind back then. We're able to see, of course, some value on MTN, but currently they closed the day with a price of 180.0 Ugandan shillings there on the Uganda Stock Exchange. As well, Uganda Clays came in as a mover with over 20,800 shares that were sold on the oldest company on the Uganda Stock Exchange, the oldest listing, if I may use that language, on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And their price similarly did not change. It was maintained at 15.0 Ugandan shillings as well. Umeme also did not miss out on this day's trading with a total of close to 7,579.0 shares that were traded. The company still trades at 300.0 Ugandan shillings. Well, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a little bit static for Umeme stock at 300 shillings, but I'm sure it's not going to be for long. So for those of you who are looking at the Umeme gains there, please do get to buy some shares before it's too late. It seems this price is not going to go down anytime soon, and we might see it actually exceed the current figures as we may anticipate. Stanbic Bank Uganda traded a total record volume of 19,400 shares as well, coming in the participants. Well, looking at generally the volumes, we had close to 521,839 shares. Well, not a big volume, but to me, I would be satisfied. Looking at the market last week, of course, we had big volumes from single companies, single sales, like Umeme having 1.4 million. We had also a single day where MTN had as well 1.4 million shares. But these don't excite me as much as having the entire stock market active. You know, you have something from Cipla, you have something from Stanbic, you have something from New Vision. It gives the market a little bit of diversification, and it also gives value to the exchange in the different sectors, because remember, we do want all sectors to benefit from the stock markets, and if at all we are only seeing trading in one particular sector, maybe financial institutions, it does to the detriment of the other sectors that could actually be doing as well much better. So I would say I'm impressed by Thursday tradings, and I definitely hope this can happen again today. Remember, the markets are open right now, and they were open at 9 a.m. and they will close at 1 p.m. East African Standard Time. You can buy shares by simply getting to the Uganda Securities Exchange website, and that's www.use.org.ug.org, and you can go to Easy Portal to open an account. This account, the SCD account, will help you to buy shares, because this is where you're going to get to store your shares or your value or your securities on the exchange. And then you can, of course, get through a licensed stockbroker your shares and get to keep them on your SCD account. Well, I would like to, in particular, look into the stocks of Bank of Baroda. It's been a while since we last had a Bank of Baroda trade on the Uganda Stock Exchange. I remember at one point in time, this was the biggest trader on the exchange. Around last year, in the month of September, around October as well, Bank of Baroda really came out very strongly there to trade. Now let's see what's currently happening to their stock. Currently, Bank of Baroda is the 12th most valuable company on the exchange, with a total of close to 213 billion shares floated on the exchange, which represents about 1.02% of the entire equities market on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Currently, their price is 85 shillings, and this hasn't changed even slightly in the last 3 or so months. When you look at the trading volumes on Thursday, they had about 1,600 shares valued at 136,000 that were traded. And currently they have 2.5 billion shares floating on the exchange. This brings their market capitalization to the 213 billion figure. Now, as I mentioned, their price hasn't been that fluctuating. That is in the last couple of months. They have maintained the 85.0 shillings price. However, they have a year-to-date, rather a year-on-year loss of about 11%. Bank of Baroda currently is in the 5th in the fifth position in terms of the most traded on stocks on the Uganda Securities Exchange in the last 3 months, where they have had over just 2.03 million shares valued at 173 million traded. Away from equity, Bank of Baroda, Cipla Quality Chemical Industries as well returned with a volume of 12,500 shillings that was traded on the market. Remember, Cipla is currently the only pharmaceutical industry that's listed on the exchange. With its initial public offer on the 17th of September 2018, the company is making over 5 years on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Currently, they are the 11th most valuable stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange, with close to 219 billion Ugandan shillings worth of market capitalization, representing 1.05% of the entire equities market on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Last year was the first year financially that Cipla registered a profit since it listed on the 18th of September 2018, and it came as a very, very exciting move for the shareholders there, who actually earned a 1.5 shillings dividend for every share they held at Cipla Quality Chemical Industries. And of course, that meant a very big pat on the back for Cipla, which had actually not been able to register a profit since listing in 2018. Currently, their price is 60.0 Ugandan shillings per share. That's how much you can buy a share in Cipla. And they have about 12,500 shares yesterday, valued at 750,000 shillings, Ugandan shillings. Over 3.65 billion shares are out there floating on the exchange, and this brings their value to the 219 billion based on the 60.0 Ugandan shillings. Similar story here for Cipla Quality Chemical Industries. Last year was a very huge blow to the company, losing from over 94 shillings down to 60 shillings, which currently is still the company's share price there on the exchange. However, there's a lot of hope that we can put in Cipla, because it's currently the 7th most traded on stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange in the last 3 months, with over 34.8 million Ugandan shillings turnover and about 8,795 traded shares in this period. And of course, that's the trading, from Uganda. Umeme is currently still at 300 shillings. And remember, this, of course, was a result of the company's announcement that they will be exiting Uganda in 2025 on the 31st of March, after their concession period of 20 years is actually getting expired then, and they will not be renewing that. So definitely so many expectations there for the shareholders, and this has led their stock as well to go up from over an average of 270 to currently 300 Ugandan shillings. The market capitalization of the Uganda Securities Exchange contracted slightly by close to 100 million due to, of course, losses on the big cross listings such as equity, and this was down to 20.9 trillion from 21 trillion on Thursday morning. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to cross over to Nairobi Securities Exchange. Our brothers in Nairobi did pull off a very wonderful day of trading there on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, generally speaking, the all-share index appreciated for the very first time this week with a soar of over 2.83 points. This was up to 122.20 points. Now, currently, the company on aggregate had about 44 companies or listings participating in the day's trading, ending the day with 16 gainers and 16 losers. A little bit of balance there on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, Flemtree Group Holdings led the top gainers with a gain of close to 10%. 2% and appreciating to 1.10 Kenyan shillings. It was the biggest gainer for the day. Kenya Orchards as well appreciated 9.65%, and East African Breweries Limited also 8.91% was realized, and Longhorn Publishers at about 5.96%. Now let's get to look at Flame Tree Group holding stock slightly here. The company's stock price is currently 1.10 Ugandan shillings with a huge market capitalization of close to 196 million Ugandan shillings. Their gross turnover was 110 Kenyan shillings, and currently the earnings per share are standing at 0.58, meaning the company is actually adding a little bit of value to the shareholder there. The price per earnings ratio as well is at 1.90 as well. Now, the Flame Tree Group holding stocks is currently also the 39th most traded on stock on the market, and this represents about 334 deals in the last 3 months and over 220,400 shares on Flame Tree Group holdings. On the loser side, unfortunately for Olympia Capital Holdings, things were not so good after the day ended with the company losing 7.22% of its stock price, down to 2.70 Kenyan shillings per share. Diamond Trust Bank as well lost a 2.75% on their stock price, and Stanley Fahari Income Re-IT at over 2.24% decline. In terms of trading, Safaricom did record the biggest volume with close to 108 million shares that were traded on Safaricom. Wow, this was a big market move for Safaricom, and I don't know, but we could be having lots of investors actually flocking out or flocking into the Nairobi market. But according to what I see here, definitely this could be a good thing for Safaricom stocks, which have also been going down since last year. When you look at the graph here from July, the company was trading as high as 30 shillings, and currently at 21.75 shillings, it has lost significantly on its value. Now, yesterday alone, this was a big market movement for Kenya. 108 million shares traded on a single day at close to 2.34 billion Kenyan shillings. Wow, that was a very huge market movement. 2.34 billion Kenyan shillings in a single day, and with the earnings per share going up to 1.74. I think this is a good day for Safaricom, who has also been struggling to keep up. This is, of course, the #1 most traded on stock, one of the favorites, especially as well for the foreign investors there in Kenya. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to cross over to other markets here. Now, generally speaking, Nigerian Stock Exchange gained close to 10.91 points, and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, on the other hand, lost over 367 points on their benchmark index, which is the J203. Let's cross over to the world stocks here, and of course getting to look into the US stocks being getting closer and closer to the earnings periods. Many companies are, of course, on their tenterhooks because it's a time for accountability. It's a time to actually release those figures and get to make sense out of them. Now, the stocks on the US markets actually moved lower on Thursday as investors desiccated the latest, as investors dissected the latest batch of economic data and braced for more Fed speak and start of earnings season from the corporate tech giants. The S&P 500 slipped nearly close to 1%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.8% in the midday trading, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite declined by 1.1%. The bond prices ticked up with the yield on the 10-year Treasury note falling from about falling to about 3.368 from about 3.374% on Wednesday, and the dollar index traded lower as well Thursday morning. That's it, my friend, from the world global markets and the regional as well as the domestic markets. Remember to diversify your portfolio as an investor, and also check out Alltex East Africa and get yourself some treasury bonds. My name is Anthony Sabale. I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye for now.